Every Thursday at 5:45 sharp, I park my car by the narrow dirt path that leads to Hillcrest Cemetery. I never have to think about it. I just go. The habit is so ingrained, I sometimes forget to ask myself why I still do it. My sister's grave is tucked beneath a maple tree that always turns early, like it can't wait to shed the year. Right now, in late October, the leaves look like they've been set on fire, reds and golds, and a few stubborn greens hanging on. I always bring two things, a single white mum from the grocery store and the thermos she gave me years ago, filled with whatever tea I'm into that month. It's silly, maybe, but I like the ritual. It keeps her close. That afternoon, I almost didn't notice it. The figure already sitting at the grave. I was halfway up the hill when I stopped short. A woman. Not old, maybe mid-30s like me. Her legs were crossed neatly in front of her, a bulky oatmeal-colored sweater pooling around her like a blanket. She had her eyes closed, humming, just softly enough that I couldn't make out the tune. For a moment, I thought maybe she was at the wrong grave. But then I saw her hand resting gently against the headstone. My sister's headstone. I froze. Anger bloomed, fast and instinctive. This was my time, my place. I didn't come here to be watched or interrupted. I came to feel close to the only person who ever really knew me, who I lost too fast, too soon. I cleared my throat louder than necessary. Her eyes opened slowly, like she'd been somewhere far away. She turned and looked at me. Not startled, not apologetic, just calm. She didn't tell me I came every week. She just nodded, like she already knew. "I'm Lee," she said. The name hit like a memory half recalled. I didn't say anything, just walked the rest of the way and sat down stiffly on the other side of the grave. I placed the mum at the base of the stone, brushing aside a few crinkled leaves. Lee didn't speak again, just folded her hands in her lap and looked straight ahead. I thought about leaving, driving away and finding some other place to cry, to talk to a stone that never answers. But I didn't. I stayed. We sat in silence until the shadows grew long and the chill got into my bones. When I finally stood, she did too. We didn't say goodbye, but something in me knew this wasn't the last time I'd see her. The next Thursday, I told myself I wasn't expecting her, but I parked a little slower, walked a little quieter, and when I crested the hill, there she was, sitting cross-legged in the same oversized sweater, her hair pulled into a loose bun, face tilted up to the sun like she was gathering warmth while it lasted. She looked over at me and smiled, not brightly, just soft, like she'd been hoping I'd come. I sat down without a word. This time she was the one who stayed silent, letting the moment stretch between us like string, delicate, unbroken. It became a pattern. Every week she was there, sometimes before me, sometimes after. Some days we spoke, others we just sat, breathing the same crisp air. She always brought something small. A rock she said my sister would have pocketed, a pressed flower from a book. Once she handed me a folded paper crane and said she loved things that folded but didn't break. It was week 4 when she brought coffee. "I wasn't sure how you take it," she said, offering me one of the cups. "So I guessed wrong on purpose. That way you can tell me how you do like it." I snorted before I could stop myself. "That's weirdly charming." "Good," she said. She hated charm. I blinked. "You mean..." "She hated when people tried to be charming, thought it was a cover." I smiled, despite myself. "Yeah, that sounds like her." Lee's face softened. "I miss her," she said quietly. I looked at her for a long time. Who were you to her? I asked. It came out sharper than I meant. Lee didn't flinch. She just reached into her tote and pulled out a small photograph. The edges were worn, like it had been handled too much. In it, 2 girls in tank tops stood shoulder to shoulder on some beach, holding plastic cups and laughing at something off camera. My sister and Lee, younger, sunburnt, and so clearly in love it hurt to look at. "We were best friends," Lee said, voice low, "but also more. Sometimes. Not always. We didn't really figure it out in time." The wind picked up, rustling the leaves around us. I tucked my hands into my coat. "I never told me," I whispered. She wouldn't have. She was scared of the gap between who she was and who people wanted her to be. Even you. That landed like a punch I'd seen coming too late. "Do you ever think you knew everything about her?" Lee asked. I thought about how certain I'd always been that my sister confided in me, that I was the one person she never hid from. "No," I said finally, "and I think that's what hurts most." She nodded. We sat in silence again, but this time closer. Our knees almost touched, the kind of closeness that says, "I won't move unless you do." When I stood up to leave, I hesitated. "Next week is her birthday," I said, brushing a leaf from the grave. "You could come, if you want. Just us." Lee looked at me with something flickering in her eyes. Gratitude, maybe, or fear. "I'd like that," she said, but her voice cracked, just slightly. She nodded again, but I saw it, that tiny flash of hesitation, and something inside me braced for what might come next. I got there early, earlier than usual even. The sky was still bruised with morning light when I set out the little things I'd brought. A cupcake with a candle, a bundle of fresh marigolds, and a playlist we made together years ago, now loaded onto a tiny speaker that barely had battery left. I didn't want it to feel heavy. I wanted it to feel like her. Lee didn't come. I told myself she was late, maybe stuck in traffic, or work ran long, or her nerves got the best of her, and she was sitting in her car, just out of sight, trying to find the courage to walk up. But the sun began to fall. The candle flickered out in the breeze before I could even light it. The speaker died somewhere between track 4 and 5. I stayed until the chill wrapped around me like a warning. Then I sat some more. Eventually, I went home, alone. I tried not to be mad. Grief does strange things to people. I know that. I've lived it. But the emptiness she left behind scraped against the old ache in me, doubling it, compounding it. Loss on top of loss. That night, I poured a glass of wine and pulled out an old shoebox from the top of my closet. My sister's things. Most of it was silly. Concert tickets, postcards she never sent, a friendship bracelet she wore until it fell apart. But tucked between the pages of an old notebook, I found her phone. Dead, of course. I charged it just to see. There it was. A message I'd never seen. Sent 3 days before the accident. "I think I'm in love with someone. It's stupid. I'm scared she'll never know." I read it a dozen times, hands trembling. She hadn't said who, but I didn't need her to. It had to be Lee. I sat with that truth, raw and alive, and let it do what grief always does. Cut me open, then stitch something new beneath the surface. By midnight, I was writing. A letter. Not angry, not demanding, just honest. Lee, I waited today. I don't know why you didn't come, and I won't pretend it didn't hurt. But I'm not writing to make you feel worse. I found something. A message my sister sent before she died. I think it was for you. If you're still grieving her, you're not alone. If you're afraid, so am I. But maybe there's a way we don't have to carry her in silence. Maybe we can remember her together without getting lost in it. And maybe, just maybe, we could keep something alive between us. No pressure, no expectation. Just come back if you want. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. The next morning, I slid it into the hollow of the headstone where the granite had chipped, protected from wind, but visible if she came. Then I waited. Not at the grave this time. I just waited. Open, terrified, but ready. Thursday came again. I parked slower than usual, my fingers gripping the steering wheel longer than they needed to. The sky was washed in that soft gray blue that comes just before dusk, when the sun gives up and lets the cold take over. I didn't expect her to be there. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I'd rehearsed the walk up that hill with only silence waiting for me. But there she was. Lee. A small blanket spread out on the grass, 2 thermoses set side by side. Her eyes met mine the moment I stepped onto the path. She stood. "I'm sorry," she said, voice breaking like she'd been holding those 2 words inside her all week. I ran because it felt too good. And I've only ever known how to sit with loss, not anything else. I stopped a few feet away, unsure what to say. My heart felt too full, too fragile. "I found her message," I whispered. Lee nodded. "I figured you might." She looked down. I loved her. For a long time. But we never said it right. Never made it real. She was always half in, half out. And I didn't push because I was afraid too. She motioned to the blanket. I brought peppermint tea. She hated it, she added with a soft smile. "But you told me once you liked it." I didn't remember saying that, but I believed her. I sat beside her. We didn't touch, not right away. We just looked at the headstone, the flickering candle she'd placed in front of it. The flame barely held against the breeze. "She used to hum when she couldn't find the words," I said. "I never realized that's what it meant until I heard you doing it." She taught me that. Said it was better than lying. We sipped tea, told stories we hadn't shared yet. I learned about the time they drove 4 hours for a concert that got canceled, and Lee learned how my sister used to sneak into my room at night during storms, even when we were teenagers. Different pieces of the same woman. By the time the candle burned low, Lee's hand was resting next to mine, our fingers close enough to feel the heat. "I think she'd like this." "What?" "That we're here. Together. That we're not pretending anymore." Lee turned to me, her eyes wet, but steady. She said, "I think she hoped we'd find each other, even if she didn't know how to make it happen." I reached out then, just touched her hand lightly, honestly. She laced our fingers together. We sat like that as the light faded, the maple tree above us rustling softly. The headstone didn't feel like a wound anymore. It felt like a witness. Two women, side by side, not holding on to the past, but letting it guide us forward.